Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and we're going to have a look at the latest on the extremely unsettled weather we have at the moment and the potentially very stormy conditions that could be arriving as we head into this next upcoming working week, where it's looking quite possible or even quite likely now that we'll see another named storm on Wednesday into Thursday, and potentially even a secondary system moving in for the following weekend. So we've got some extremely lively conditions coming up. We'll be able to have a look at the next few days where it is unsettled, but nothing too ridiculous, as we'll look at the latest from the live radar and the latest weather warnings, as we have got quite a few yellow rain warnings around, as the ground is still extremely saturated, so any amount of heavy rain will cause issues. We'll be able to have a look at the latest UKV, which will give us the temperature and the precipitation over the next 5 days, and this now does have that system through Wednesday into Thursday into its time frame, and my gosh, it is pretty severe on this latest UKV, bringing widely 70 to 90 mile per hour wind gusts around much of southern and western coastal areas, bringing in very high amounts of rainfall as well, with a big spiral in its course. So we'll have a look at that in detail in a few minutes' time. And then we have to look at the longer range as well from the latest GFS, GEM, Eastern OF and the Ensembles, not only having a look at the very stormy weather coming up this upcoming working week, but also into the following weekend, where, as I said, there could be secondary system, which could also be named, but is too far away at this stage to put any certainty on that. And of course, we'll have a look at the even longer term trends as we do progress into November. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, which do like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the link's in description. Now, if you start on the live radar, we have got multiple areas of interest once again today. It's pretty much like a broken record now, but we have got more heavy rain across eastern Scotland, and another yellow warning is issued here. You can see it doesn't look too bad. It's not ridiculously heavy, but it's been very persistent over the past couple of days and already falling onto the ground, which is extremely saturated, of course, after Storm Babet, where we saw hundreds of millimetres, and we've subsequently seen tens of millimetres in the past few days fall. Again, yellow warning issued for potential flooding. We've got warnings across Northern Ireland, eastern parts at the moment, but then we see a subsequent warning covering most of Northern Ireland, as we are seeing some heavy showers spreading at the moment. For the northern half of the British Isles, we've actually got an easterly wind coming in as the low pressures take a southerly track, and that's why this rainfall is coming in from the east. Same for these showers across Northern Ireland, giving heavy rain in places. And then we've got probably the main sort of event of rainfall through the next sort of 24 hours or so is across much of southern England, where we're seeing heavy thundery showers break out at the moment. Again, you can see mostly moderate to heavy rainfall, but some real torrential bursts within some of these showers. Not quite exactly how it's been modelled at the moment. The reality isn't quite as it's been modelled. There was, in the models we've seen in a minute, a lot more rainfall further eastwards, but either that hasn't taken off yet, and it is going to take off in the next sort of hour or so, or the models are slightly wrong, and the precipitation further westwards, or even further southwards, so we've got some real torrential rain across much of the Channel Islands and northern France. You can see how these reds form into lines indicating the general wind direction, as we see a big plume of cumulonimbus clouds, i.e. thunderstorm cells breaking out and then spreading with its rainfall with the wind direction. So lots of very heavy rainfall around across much of southern England, South Wales at the moment, already falling onto very saturated ground. And we've once again got a widespread yellow warning across much of southern and eastern England. Surprised it hasn't extended further westward, looking at some of this rainfall at the moment, but that is something that we could see in the next couple of hours. Last night we also had some very heavy rainfall near Brighton, Eastbourne and Hastings. This sort of area saw some real heavy rain that was initially modelled into the channel just to clip the south coast. Actually really did quite batter the south coast in the end, and we have seen more flooding in these areas, and we'll have a look at the past 24-hour precipitation in a minute. But you can see all this rainfall across northern France and the channel, and this is heading all towards southern and eastern England, and it's going to give a lot of rain over the next 24 hours in certain areas. Now, if you look at the temperatures, that's around 3 p.m. You can see it's fairly mild in many areas. Generally, temperatures are around average with that westerly flow. But as we head into next week, those temperatures, as we have been alluded to over the last few videos, is going to slowly go on a downwards trend back towards below average temperatures, and even could be going relatively cold as we do head into November. As said, lastly, just from the live radar, we'll just have a look at the past 24-hour precipitation, and you can see where we've had heavy rain across much of eastern Scotland, Northern Ireland seen some heavy rain, but as I said, that bullseye area has really been across that far southeast area from Brighton across Hastings all the way along towards Dover here, and I've seen some videos of very high amounts of flooding in Hastings. And you can see how localised it is. It's just because those heavy thundery showers that we're seeing out in the Channel and northern France at the moment were also there overnight. And as I said, not modelled to come far inland, but in the end they did batter this far southeastern coastal area, and we're likely to see these darker greens and yellows spread further inland and become more widespread in themselves. Now, if you look at the latest weather warnings, we've got multiple warnings issued at the moment. We've got the warning for eastern Scotland. It does expire in a couple of hours' time as that rainfall is slowly easing off. But you can see that there is now a separate warning that's issued for Sunday and Monday. So it's not the end of the warning. We've just got a separate warning issued for tomorrow with a bit of a respite overnight. So we'll have a look at this in detail. We'll have a look at this with the tomorrow's warning in a minute. So you can see we've got this warning for East and Northern Ireland. It expires at 6 p.m. this evening, again, for quite high amounts of rainfall, but we'll focus more on the widespread yellow warning, which covers much of Northern Ireland here, excluding some northern parts. High likelihood, but relatively high impact as well. 10 millimetres is possible within an hour, 30 millimetres in 6 hours. Typical sort of convective activity falling onto already pretty saturated ground. And then finally, we've got the warning across southern and eastern areas. I'm surprised it hasn't been extended slightly further westwards from looking at the live radar at the moment. But you can see it is from early this morning and expires all the way at midnight tomorrow night. And you can again see 15 to 30 millimetres quite widely. Wettest spots close to the English Channel coasts, especially those sort of said that sort of Hastings area was already seen 50 to 70 millimetres and could see even more. And also very strong gusty winds. Low likelihood, very high impact. I do think there is even the possibility of an amber warning coming into force within this, especially in those areas that have seen that very heavy rainfall already. Now, if you progress into Sunday, we've got both those two warnings, Northern Ireland and Southern England, still issued, and then we've got that new warning for Eastern Scotland, and again it's from midnight tonight until Monday at midnight as well. So another 48-hour warning, and again, if you look at the details, 20 to 40 millimetres of rain, while the wettest spots, most likely from Stirling and Fife northwards, we'll see 50 to 80 millimetres. Isolated 100 to 120 millimetres is possible, 50 to 60 mile per hour gusts. So very unsettled weather, could even see an amber warning issued within this, but nothing too extreme yet. And into Monday, we still have that Eastern Scotland warning. But I said, the issues we're thinking about with potentially another named storm is coming Wednesday or Thursday times. The warnings haven't even touched on it yet, and I wouldn't expect them to be issuing, the Met Office to be issuing warnings probably until tomorrow at the earliest, but most likely Monday time as confidence starts to build. Now, if you look at the latest UKV, we'll be able to see the precipitation, the wind gusts, and the temperatures over the next 5 days. Now, you can see through the rest of this evening that heavy rain spreading in. As I'm recording this at 4 p.m, you can see how much of southern England is under this very heavy band of rain. But as I said earlier, when we look at the live radar, we're not seeing that in reality yet. So either the UKV is slightly advanced in timings and that heavy rain is still across northern France, hasn't quite moved in yet, or the model is slightly wrong, which is entirely possible because this is very convection based, which means there's a higher degree of uncertainty. But through the evening, lots of heavy rain spiralling in, and then more heavy thundery showers as we head to around 8, 9, 10 p.m. And generally that rain heads northwards and gives heavier rain across eastern Scotland once again tomorrow. Heavy thundery showers affecting that southern and southeastern coastal areas once again. again, could be dumping tens of millimetres into areas already underwater. And as we continue through Sunday into Monday, still lots of heavy showers around, but easing slightly in places. And then into Monday, still some heavy showers around, but just not quite as widespread. Tuesday, similar story with showers around, but a little bit of a break there through the afternoon as a weather front arrives. And this is an initial area of low pressure moving in, but this is not the named storm or the potential named storm yet. This is area of low pressure moving in, lots of heavy rain around, but look what happens as we head through Wednesday into Thursday. Look to our southwest, this huge hook with very heavy rainfall starts to move in, and look at that system. Ridiculous area of low pressure, extremely deep, extremely heavy rain along it, and we are seeing gusts, as I said, up to 90 miles per hour as we head into the first couple of days of November. We have a look at the mean sea level pressure for the system. You see initially the low pressure that arrives through Tuesday and Wednesday is around 980 millimars, 978 potentially, and that system arriving into Thursday, central pressure of 952, ridiculously low pressure, and you'd expect it on this southern flank where we'd be seeing the strongest winds, but even all round this low we are seeing very tight isobars, so extremely strong winds looking likely quite widely. Now, if you look over the next few days, we're not seeing anything too extreme, maybe 40 to 50 mile per hour gusts in places, but nothing too bad. Through Sunday again, maybe 50 or 60 miles per hour across the south coast, around Scotland, but again, nothing too extreme. Through Monday, again, gusty winds in Scotland, but most areas, winds are falling relatively light. Into Tuesday and Wednesday, we start to see some gustier winds arrive as that initial low arrives, but then look, Wednesday night into Thursday, we look and we see those widespread 60, 70, 80 or even 90 mile per hour wind gusts across the south coast of England, southwest England, southern Ireland, and remember, we're being cut off here. If we did allow this to progress and that low eventually move on shore, we could be seeing 70 miles per hour inland. These sort of wind gusts, from experience, from history, would suggest a named storm, would suggest widespread yellow warnings, and would suggest amber warnings issued. If we saw 70, 80 miles per hour inland, which is possible only if the low maintains its strength, which there is quite a deal of uncertainty with, then there is the possibility of red warnings. But at this stage, we can't really call that. But from the looks of this, definitely naming, definitely yellow warnings, and most likely some quite large amber warnings for winds with this. Now, if you look at the temperatures, you'll be able to see that it does actually, with the horrible conditions coming in next week, it does in fact cool down as well. Now, today, 13, 14 degrees, so average really in most areas, cooler further northwards. Tomorrow, still looking generally average, low teens, or maybe mid to high single digits across Scotland, but you can see there it is starting to cool down. And into Monday, could be a bit of a frost in places, and cooler, more towards the mid-single digits, still mid to low teens in the south. Tuesday, cold in the north. This for Halloween doesn't look too bad. 13, 14 degrees in the day, and the weather in terms of precipitation doesn't look too bad as well. Showers around, but luckily Halloween is going to be falling on a fairly mundane day within a very unsettled spell. And then as we head into Wednesday, you can see lots more mixing of those air masses, cooler air mixing in there as that big low pressure system arrive, and you can see all the temperature contrast through, for example, southern Ireland there goes from 5 degrees to 14 degrees in the space of a few tens of miles, just showing you the extreme temperature contrasts, which are emphasised further with the upper air temperatures there. Look at those temperature contrasts, almost 10 degrees in places. That is just fueling this area of low pressure, which, as I said, at this stage is looking quite likely to be named. Now, if you have a look at the longer term predictions from the long range runs, you can see low pressure is generally in control at the moment, but nothing too deep, and that's why it's not too windy and it's not too severe yet. However, as we head into the middle of next week, we see that low pressure arrive initially, giving some unsettled weather, heavy rain around, quite a lot of heavy rain actually, and some gusty winds, but it's that low that develops on the southern flank of the main area of low pressure through Wednesday into Thursday that could be severe, and you can see it there. Huge area of low pressure with very strong gusty winds, and it kind of stalls through Thursday, Friday, and could dump more further rainfall, and we could see, as I said, yellow, amber, or even red warnings as the storm arrives, but when it lingers, we could see further warnings issued for the subsequent days as that low doesn't move and just continues to drop all its rain. The wind probably would die down as it does fill in, but it would still be really quite horrible. And then there is the possibility into Saturday of seeing a secondary system you can see arriving here that again could be named, but there is a lot of uncertainty with that as it is about a week away still. But very severe system once again down towards 960 millibars or lower towards the centre of the system. Beyond that, it stays very unsettled with more low pressure systems coming in off the Atlantic, just not quite as horrible as this upcoming week is looking. And then generally into longer range, still with a southerly tracking jet stream blocking towards Greenland, allowing cold air to filter in. So you can see why it's staying very unsettled in the longer term, but turning even colder. Look at all those blues developing in the North Atlantic as cold air gets shoved out of the Arctic. Now to finish for the last two runs by having a look at the latest GM. Again, low pressure moving in off the Atlantic at the moment, but nothing too severe as of yet. Eventually, those severe lows arrive early next week, and you can see that system arriving on the southern flank, really rapidly developing this. It's not quite as deep as the UKV was producing, still 960 millibars, but you can see it's deepening as it arrives, which could exacerbate impacts. And then eventually turns into a big, larger mother low there. And again, similar to the GFS, just stalls. And then we could see a secondary system, but the GEM fills it in, but on approach. So nowhere near as severe, but would still be unsettled and probably warrants still some yellow warnings. And then right towards day 10, it remains cold and unsettled. Low pressure over the top of us. A bit of a Greenland high pressure system and colder air filtering out of the Arctic. Now finally, if we look at the ECMWF, again, low pressure continue to come in off the Atlantic at the moment. Eventually we see that real big storm system arrive for Thursday, moving in, impacting further westwards there, really smashing Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. Again, looking probably at 80, 90, 100 mile per hour winds. The central pressure for this system does actually look quite a bit lower than the UKV was showing, down towards 948 towards the centre of the low there. That is extreme. And then as we progress beyond that, another lower rise. But again, similar to the GM, not quite as intense, but still would likely have some big impacts with it as it's coming on off the back of extremely stormy weather. And then towards day 10, something interesting happens. We actually see a bit of a mid-Atlantic ridge and actually a bit of a cold northerly wind arrives. Again, we wouldn't expect anything severe, but -5 isotherm gets in for much of the northern half of the country. The temperature deviation, 6 to 8 degrees below average, and actually turns quite cold. So by the end of this run, Eastern UF just producing a little bit of a colder northerly snap, which looks entirely possible as we do progress into the longer range, as we are seeing that high latitude blocking still coming in the models. Now, I've finished by looking at the latest ensembles. These are the latest GFS ensembles. In general, you can see the temperatures are average to below average over the next couple of weeks. Big precipitation spikes next 24 hours as the heavy showers move in, then into Wednesday and Thursday as we see that severe low arrive, and then potentially again into Saturday as another severe low arrives. Luckily, you can see there for Halloween, still rainfall around, but luckily in between the big weather fronts and the severe weather. 2 meter temperatures are not looking particularly great either. Big descent down towards 9 or 10 degrees over the next couple of weeks. And we can really see the approaching lows. We'll have a look at the mean sea level pressure. You see that initial system arriving next Thursday, 950 to 970 on a lot of these runs. And then a secondary low arriving for Saturday. A lot of these runs, again, are pretty severe. So even though the GM and the Eastern UF weren't on board with this secondary system being particularly severe, a lot of the GFS ensembles definitely are. Now, to compare it finally to the ECMWF ensembles, again, temperatures are average to below average, especially in the longer term, with a definitely cooling trend as we do progress into the first week or two of November. Quite a few runs getting well below the 0 degree mark. Again, that would encourage quite a lot of frost fog and generally potentially wintry showers in the north. But in the next week or so, huge precipitation spikes appearing. More actually for Halloween here, unfortunately. Again, that's something we'll delve more into in the next video as it does become more apparent exactly what will be happening. And then if we do compare once again to the mean sea level pressure, again, massive dip in pressure on Thursday and another massive dip on Sunday. Again, could be seeing multiple severe low pressure systems arrive. The eastern OF does go fairly deep, but as we did see, the isobars weren't too packed together, so we'll be very uncertain exactly what that would entail in terms of wind gusts at this stage. But regardless, is looking pretty severe from Wednesday to Saturday or even Sunday next week. Looking very likely that we see at least one named storm, potentially even two. And I do think we will see the return to widespread yellow, even potentially widespread amber, and maybe even localized red warnings once again. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you have enjoyed and you stay safe over the coming days and the next week or so, and I'll keep you up to date with all the latest weather warnings. But if you do want to stay ahead, the weather warnings are normally updated around the 10 or 11 a.m. Every day, but I do suspect in this period coming up we'll see more updates than that, with them being updated multiple times a day, and I'll try to keep on top of that and let you know what is going on. So as I said, thanks for watching, hope you have enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.